So got here a agent building cycle diagram that I have created here, which you can go ahead and check out from within the document. Just a high level overview of what we are looking at here. The top step is building the logic. This is where you create agent logic visually. The way I do this and the way we're going to cover it in this video, I do this by interacting with ChatGPT and just using the platform to help me brainstorm and articulate what I want to do in a way that not only ChatGPT will understand, in a way that SmithOS will understand as well. Essentially, SmithOS works in a way where they've got their own master agent, which is called Agent Weaver. And this is their agent that helps you build other agents. So you want to be able to talk in a language that Agent Weaver is going to understand. And that's where, for me, ChatGPT really comes into its own because it helps me articulate all of that. So building the logic, and then we've got connecting the tools there, integrate with various tools and APIs. So depending on what your use case is, some use cases are really complex. You can make this as complex or as easy as you want, but some use cases are fairly simple. I don't have a highly technical background, so I tend to stay away. Super complex use cases need to access information from closed platforms like Facebook, YouTube, and TikTok. For context, what I mean by closed platforms, I mean that the agent is going to need to use something called an API in order to access that platform. And a lot of these platforms generally will sell an API. API is like a phone call that your agent will need to make every time you ask for information. Once it gets that information, it displays it wherever it wanted. The problem is, because information is so valuable, a lot of these platforms will either not provide an API, or if they do, it'll be a chargeable API. So if you look at it this way, the more valuable and higher quality information you get, the more expensive that API will be. You do get some platforms that are releasing completely free information that is up to date. However, a lot of the time you will have to pay for these APIs. But the workaround found is, with a lot of AI agents that I'm building, I tend to stick with information that is available via large language models. SmithOS, as well as other similar platforms, will tend to have a native connection with large language models like ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini. That in itself is a lake, a sea of information you potentially use to run an application. For example, writing scripts for TikTok videos, YouTube long-form videos, writing hooks, call to actions, creating product descriptions, and so forth. Generally, that structure, that information doesn't change a whole lot over time. It tends to be within a chat, even though the products themselves do evolve and change. So use cases like that, doing assignments for schoolwork, helping teachers write documents, write white papers, and so forth, you could use a large language model. And a lot of these large language models do tend to have either low cost or free APIs that are available. In a nutshell, all this means, in the simplest possible language, is using LLMs as your source of information tends to be a lot less complicated than using APIs. APIs are really good as well, but there's a cost element as well as a technical knowledge element that comes with that. Specify actions. So we've got access to the API or various tools. Specify what actions your agent is going to take. So you define agent actions through controls. I've built you as an agent. Here are the tools I'm going to need you to use. Now, this is what I'm going to need you to use these tools for. Then you test and refine. This is where you evaluate and improve the agent performance. This is where you check for any bugs. This is where you're chatting with the agent, which I will show you a little bit later on in this video, and seeing what type of output is coming out of the agent. So how a SmithOS agent works. So here's a simple breakdown of that. A SmithOS agent can be understood as a combination of brain and skills. The agent is the brain and the skills. An agent serves as the central intelligence responsible for determining what actions to take and when to execute them. The skills represent the agent's capabilities akin to arms, legs, and tools enabling it to perform specific tasks. So agent is brain, and the arms and the legs and the body are like the skills that you are going to give it. You can look at the skills similar to these tools that we're talking about here. Building an agent involves connecting these skills, which are modular blocks of logic, data retrieval, formatting, or tool utilization. I will show you this a little bit later on in the video so you can actually see it visually. To better understand the functionality of SmithOS, let's explore its key components with relatable analogies. So this is what you're going to find as you're using the platform. Now, these are native to SmithOS itself, but if you're using another platform like N8 or similar tool, you will find a representation of these types of components in one form or another. But this is how they come across within Smith specifically. You've got the agent, which is the entire workflow brain. Skills, the little modular task inside the agent, as we explained. The agent is like a virtual employee. The skills are like apps or mini tasks that the agent undertakes. We've got input, what data goes into a skill. So what question are you or the user of that agent going to be entering into a form or into chat or whatever it is that you're using for your website or your chatbot. And the outputs, what data comes out of a skill. So answers from each task. Now, memory stores info across steps like a sticky note the agent can refer to later. Not only does it give you the information that you asked for, it can come back to that information later on as well. Tools, external services like Gmail, Notion. API is like giving your agent a phone or a computer, similar to making phone calls. Triggers, what starts the agent? Is it a manual or an automatic trigger? This is like pressing a button or timer to get the agent started. Hopefully that all makes sense so far. Let me know in the comments if you have got any questions specifically about AI agents. I will try and answer those as soon as I can, provided that they are within the first 24 hours of posting this video. In terms of how the workflow looks, we have this representation here. So just going to briefly go through that. We initiate the agent. So you start the workflow process. This would be me or you entering a question or a request using the form the agent comes with. So interacting with the agent, execute skills, perform modular tasks. This is the agent now using the skills you've given it, the API or whatever it is, and performing the tasks that is required. It then processes inputs, so it gathers all the necessary data, generates outputs from what it's found online, and stores the memory, so it saves the data in case it needs to come back to in future. And then from there, utilize tools, access external services, and so forth. So self-explanatory there. Consider an agent designed to assist in writing a video script, for example. So the trigger in this instance would be the user inputs a product name and description. I want to write a product description for these Apple AirPods, for example. The agent utilizes a ChatGPT model to generate a TikTok script idea based on the input. These platforms will have large language models like ChatGPT built in natively, so you can easily access those without necessarily having to go and find an API key somewhere and key that in. Skill 2, the agent refines the script to match a specific style or tone, i.e. Victor's tone or someone famous's tone that you'd like to borrow from. Skill 3, the agent delivers the final script by either saving it to a tool like Notion or sending it via email. Step 4, the agent stores past prompts to avoid generating duplicate ideas in the future. You can see the assembly line of the workflow and the process that agents will tend to follow. Again, not just SmithOS agents in general. Here are some examples of skills that you might use. We've got a variety of different skills here. Again, this might be platform specific. However, you may find similar variables in other AI agent platforms out there. So you've got OpenAI Chat for writing, summarizing, and researching tasks, Google Search for retrieving real-time data from the web, API Call for interacting with external services like Kalo Data or Shopify, conditional logic for implementing decision-making processes. If this happens, then do that type of language. Formatter for cleaning and manipulating text data. Sending an email for delivering the final results of the agent's work. So some examples of skills there. Now, what makes it powerful? So SmithOS offers several key advantages specifically. So modularity. Skills can be built once and reused across multiple agents, promoting efficiency and consistency. Now, this is if you build these skills manually. I wouldn't say I'm at the stage where I'm confident enough to manually build these skills. However, if you are at that level and you understand a little bit more about the technical side of things, then if you have built that skill from scratch and put it together within SmithOS, which I will show you again in just a little bit how that visually looks, it can be used for a similar use case in future. They won't have to build it over and over again. Multi-step logic. Agents can make decisions and adapt their behavior based on intermediate results. Tool stack integration seamlessly connect with a wide range of external services, CRMs, video tools, and forms. You'll be connecting via APIs. Collaboration ready. Agents can be easily shared with clients or team members, facilitating collaboration and knowledge sharing. So building powerful AI agents. I've got a visual here that we have put together. This visualizes what we've just spoken about here. When building agents for content creation or e-commerce, it's recommended to start with a simple design, one trigger, one GPT skill, and one output. You can then add layers of complexity by incorporating memory, conditional logic, and integrations with tools like Stripe, Typeform, and Notion. You can make it as simple or as complex as you'd like. For example, you could have multiple skills. You could have multiple different blocks of logic within that assembly line. But just remember, the more complex the AI agent is, the harder or the more work that it has to do. The maintenance might be a bit spotty as well, because if you have got issues, bugs, yes, they can be fixed, but it might take longer to spot exactly where those errors are. Whereas if you've only got 3 or 4 components, not only is it easier to identify what the issue is, but it's easier for Agent Weaver, which again is like your manager, your assistant within SmithOS that helps you fix these types of issues. So really, the simpler, the better at the start.